Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're making a really massive and immediate shift in location. We're swapping the whole cosmopolitan, sun-drenched buzz of 1950s Mexico City high society for something else entirely.
Something much, much darker.
Exactly, the suffocating, mist-bound silence of a crumbling mountain estate. We are taking a deep plunge into the source material around Silvia Moreno-Garcia's Gothic world, and specifically the mystery that's unfolding around this English relic known only as High Place.
It's a really fascinating body of sources, and they give us not just the thrills of a traditional family mystery. You've got the isolation, the madness, the strange ailments, but also a very sharp, very sophisticated analysis of historical anxieties.
Okay.
So our mission today is to really analyze how the sources weave together those classic Gothic elements with this profound social critique. We're talking about eugenics, colonialism, and a kind of biological horror, a horror that's literally represented by a fungal rot that's consuming the house and, well, its inhabitants.
Okay, let's just unpack that immediately, because the contrast you mentioned is really our starting point.
Yeah.
Our main focus is Noemí Taboada, and she starts her journey just so vibrant. You have to picture the scene. 1 minute, she's at a costume party at the Tunyon's house. She's wearing this amazing green gown with white applique flowers. Her makeup is perfect. Elizabeth Arden lipstick. She's just been shopping at the Palacio de Hierro.
The height of chic.
Right. This is a woman whose life is all about parties and social maneuvering. And then the next minute, she's being shoved onto this rattling train, heading for the thin, cold mountain air to investigate a deeply, deeply troubling letter.
And that juxtaposition, that's the engine for this whole deep dive. For you, the learner listening right now, this analysis is your shortcut. You'll quickly get why Noemí's arrival at High Place is just destined to be so sinister. Noemí is this modern, witty, very skilled social persona. She knows exactly how to handle men, whether it's her powerful father or her date, Hugo Duarte, who she, very shrewdly picked, partly because he looked a bit like the movie star Pedro Infante.
She uses her charm and her intelligence almost like a weapon, or at least a very polished tool.
Precisely. And this quick-witted, modern person, just fueled by vitality and curiosity, is the absolute antithesis of the Doyles of High Place. They are ideologically opposed to everything she represents.
So her just being there is a problem for them.
Her mere presence is a catalyst. It's a massive, uncontrollable injection of life into a system that has tried so desperately to preserve stagnation and decay. The house isn't just a house, it's a system designed to reject life, and Noemí is that life.
So let's start with Noemí's core motivation, because she is, in a lot of ways, a reluctant rescuer. She's pulled away from what she sees as, the twin goals of having fun and finding a husband.
Right, and the sources make it very clear that while she is absolutely a socialite, she goes through admirers, she's always updating her wardrobe, she also has these really serious academic aspirations.
She does.
She's actively cycling through interests. She studied history, then she tried theater, and now she's really fixated on anthropology. She's at the Feminine University of Mexico, but what she really wants is to pursue a master's degree at the National University.
And her father is not having it.
Not at all. He made his fortune turning a small chemical dye business into this huge enterprise, and he strongly opposes it. He sees her interests as, well, unsuitable for a woman. He's particularly worried about the male influence in the university hallways.
So her father, this very practical man who's all about reputation and money, he uses this mission to High Place as leverage. It becomes the useful task she has to perform to prove she's mature and dedicated.
It's a classic power play. He is definitely concerned about a potential scandal if there's a divorce, but his main anxiety is financial. He knows the Doyle family's silver mining fortune is long gone.
Right.
And that Virgil's access to Catalina's money is what's keeping them afloat. He tells Noemí, flat out, I also know that if Virgil and Catalina were divorced, he'd have no money.
So the mission is really twofold.
Exactly. It's doubly strategic. Get Catalina away from this potential financial predator, Virgil, and at the same time, make Noemí prove she's ready for serious academic life. He needs her to use what he calls her famous stubbornness for the right reasons.
And the thing that triggers all of this urgency is the letter from her cousin, Catalina. And this is where the whole story just pivots sharply away from those fancy Mexico City drawing rooms and plunges straight into, well, Gothic madness.
The contrast in Catalina's handwriting alone is terrifying. She was known for being, motherly and gentle, very pragmatic. She preferred a typewriter. She was always succinct.
And this letter is not that.
Not even close. The letter Noemi gets is handwritten in this unstable, sloppy script. It just rambles all over the page. It's immediately clear that her mind is just breaking down.
So what are the key claims in the letter? It's a direct accusation, but it's more than that.
Oh, much more. She says explicitly, "He is trying to poison me," which is just a chillingly specific accusation against her husband, Virgil. But then she merges this domestic terror with these claims of environmental and spiritual decay that suggest the rot is everywhere. She writes, "This house is sick with rot, stinks of decay, brims with every single evil and cruel sentiment." She's saying the house itself is physically sick, like a living evil thing.
Which immediately raises the stakes. It's not just a bad marriage, it's this structural, atmospheric horror.
Exactly. And then she adds the supernatural claims. "I am so afraid of these restless dead, these ghosts, fleshless things, the snake eating its tail, the foul ground beneath our feet."
The snake eating its tail.
The Ouroboros. It's introduced right away as the central symbol of their entrapment. It means the decay is cyclical, it's endless.
But her father, he's so grounded in his own practical worries, he has trouble accepting what's really going on. He sees the claims of poison and ghosts, and even though he's worried about Virgil's motives, his first reaction is to just dismiss Catalina as having a tendency toward the melodramatic.
Right, and that assumption is rooted in her past misfortunes, being orphaned young, a broken engagement. It's a classic cultural dismissal.
So he's caught between two fears.
He is. He's caught between fearing a financial predator and just dismissing female hysteria, which is a very common societal assumption at the time. He's trying to find good psychiatrists, but his deepest concern is control. He even thinks about institutionalizing her, maybe at a place like La Castañeda, and he admits his worry is that we are the ones capable of ensuring her best interests are served.
Which is really an admission that he's worried if Virgil institutionalizes her, the family loses all control.
Precisely. So the mission becomes about retrieving a financial asset that's disguised as a family rescue. And the urgency is everything. Noemi has to leave immediately. Monday, Noemi, which messes up her piano recital plans, but she frames the sacrifice as proof of her dedication. She accepts the mission as her one chance to earn that master's degree. She has to complete this useful task, and that sense of brutality that Noemi brings with her is just immediately confronted and suppressed by the physical environment she enters. The journey to El Triunfo, it completely subverts her expectations.
Right, she has this idea of a storybook forest from fairy tales.
And that's shattered by the reality of the high Mexican mountains. It's all steep ravines, thin air, and a landscape that, keeps its metallic riches hidden deep inside.
And El Triunfo itself sounds like it's just a monument to failed ambition. It was a thriving silver mining town during the Porfiriato. It had English and French investment, but then it just withered after the revolution. The sources describe it as having the musty air of a place that had withered away.
It's just clinging to the dregs of splendor. The local economy is mostly goat farming, the infrastructure is failing. It's basically a town whose lifeblood was extracted by foreign interests and was then just left to die.
And that isolation is palpable.
It is. When Noemi arrives, she's not met by some modern car. She's met by this ridiculously large, old, dirty automobile relic, and it's driven by Francis Doyle. The car itself is a symbol of the Doyles' inability to move on from their, colonial past glory.
And then the house itself.
Yeah.
It emerges from the mist like an immediate antagonist in the story.
It's such a powerful image. Francis drives them up this narrow road, and the mist gets so thick, it's like driving in a bowl of milk. And when High Place finally looms into view, it's just aggressively Victorian. It's got broken shingles, dirty bay windows, and it's described as a great, quiet gargoyle, just tired and foreboding. It is the architectural opposite of her modern, colorful Mexico City home.
That Gothic architecture, plus the palpable dampness and the thick mist, it just screams decay, but a very specific systemic kind of decay.
And when she steps inside, that sense of stagnation is overwhelming. Florence, Francis's mother, is like the grim warden of the house. She meets her under this cloudy 9-arm chandelier, and the interior details are so essential for understanding the rot. Furniture is covered with white sheets. The air itself is thick with dust motes just dancing in the very limited light.
And they're actively rejecting modernity, or at least the appearance of it.
Oh, completely. They rely on candles and oil lamps. They installed electric lighting back in 1909, but they decided it was insufficient, so the house is forced into this perpetual twilight. Even the library, which should be a place of knowledge, is filled with leather-bound books that are ravaged by mold, and they give off this sweet scent of rot.
So the Doyles are literally living inside a museum dedicated to their own decline. biologically and financially.
Exactly. And their whole aesthetic is rooted in this fanatic commitment to an aggressive kind of Englishness, a preserved colonial mindset.
Right.
Howard Doyle, the patriarch, he didn't just insist they only speak English, refusing to learn a word of Spanish. He actually imported European earth for the garden.
Wow.
It's a profound, intentional rejection of the native soil and the culture all around them. It's this defiant attempt to replicate a dead foreign world right there in Mexico. And the symbolism of this closed system is immediately confirmed by the Ouroboros.
The symbol that Catalina mentioned in her terrifying letter.
It's everywhere. Noemí sees the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, almost immediately. It's in the library rug, a black serpent on a crimson background. She sees it later in the greenhouse glass and a floor mosaic. It is the family crest. It signifies that everything in High Place is cyclical, self-consuming, and completely closed off. The decay is infinite. It just keeps going.
And this commitment to isolation, it even extends to death.
We see that reinforced when Noemí visits the English cemetery. It's a separate, manicured, yet overgrown and kind of melancholic graveyard just for the English workers who died in an epidemic in 1888. It's physically isolated from the local cemetery, which just reinforces the Doyles' unwavering sense of superiority and separation from the very land and people that gave them their wealth.
And Florence immediately establishes herself as the enforcer of all this silence and stagnation. She dictates everything.
She does. No bothering Howard, no bothering Catalina, who needs her rest, no wandering around because of the ravines, and very pointedly, no smoking in this house. She's trying to manage Noemí's vice before she's even had a chance to unpack.
Florence really sees herself as the necessary steward of this decay.
I think she does. She's rigid, severe, and she's clearly internalized the house's ideology completely. She confesses that she tried to leave once, but was convinced she was meant to live and die in High Place. This isn't just duty, it's fatalism.
Even dinner is oppressive.
Oh, it's awful. It's silent. It consists of watery soup and chicken and an unappealing creamy white sauce with mushrooms. The food itself mirrors the house. It's damp, unappetizing, and, well, possibly laced with fungus.
If High Place is the architecture of decay, then we have to talk about the man who designed its moral foundation, Howard Doyle. When he finally appears, the contrast between how he looks and his intellectual power is really unsettling. He's described in terms of just total physical decay. Ancient, a waxwork, his face is gouged with wrinkles, he has this faint foul odor.
He looks like an underground creature, like a slug, but his eyes are a startling blue, and they're very commanding.
That contrast is the perfect symbol of the Doyle system, isn't it? A rotting shell powered by a poisonous, rigid ideology.
It is. The very first time he talks to Noemí, he immediately launches into this racial critique of her appearance. He notes her darker coloration, connecting her to Indian heritage and the mestizos of Mexico. And his obsession isn't just random prejudice. It's rooted in formal, historical eugenics theory.
This is where we need to slow down, because he immediately starts dropping academic names. We're wading into the specifics of formal scientific racism here.
We are. Howard discusses the work of José Vasconcelos, who was a key Mexican philosopher who came up with concepts like the cosmic race or bronze race, an idea about cultural blending and unification. But Howard filters all of this through the dangerous discriminatory lens of American eugenics researchers like Davenport and Stegerda. He's focusing explicitly on the intermingling of superior and inferior types.
So he takes his philosophical idea about the unification of Latin America and just brutally twists it into a pseudoscientific justification for white supremacy, for separation, for a biological hierarchy.
That is the core insight here. High Place isn't just a house built on old silver. It's built on a deliberate, pseudoscientific philosophy of white supremacy that's enforced through literal physical isolation. Howard reduces Noemí to a specimen whose heritage has to be categorized as fit and unfit. He acknowledges her new beauty, claiming she's an example of aesthetic selection, but he only does that to bolster his own theories about how to breed the best traits.
But Noemí, being an anthropology student, she doesn't just sit there and take it. She actually counters him. She mentions Gamio's paper, which suggested that the harsh natural selection of the American continent actually made indigenous people biologically superior, and that Europeans would benefit from intermingling.
And Howard is pleased by this, but only because she's engaging on his terms, the terms of biological taxonomy and selection. He says, "I can tell you are an intelligent young woman. You grasp the point of aesthetic selection. He completely misses the broader progressive point she's making. He just sees proof that his ideology that people should be bred like livestock is academically sound.
And his commitment to this ideology is just terrifyingly visible in his own marriage history, which reveals this extreme, incestuous application of eugenics.
Yeah, the sources confirm he married two cousins who were also sisters, Agnes and Alice Doyle. Agnes was his first cousin. Alice was Agnes's younger sister and also his cousin. He took them in when they were orphaned and then married them one after the other.
And he's proud of it.
Chillingly proud. He states that a woman's function is to preserve the family line. This reveals a desperate, extreme commitment to maintaining a closed bloodline, rejecting any dilution from the outside, especially from Mexican influence. He saw this inbreeding as necessary preservation. It was a vital part of the Doyle system.
So if Howard is the ideologue of decay, then Florence and Virgil are the practical keepers, making sure the system stays sealed and functional. Florence is the housekeeper, the warden.
She is total institutional control in human form. Florence is always dressed in these severe, dark clothes, and she micromanages the tiny staff, who are just as silent and subservient as the house itself. She enforces the quiet because Howard is sensitive to noise, and she dictates every move Noemí makes. She actively sees Noemí's vivacity, her clothes, her makeup, her desire to socialize, as a liability that threatens the fragile balance of high place.
And Virgil, Catalina's husband, he's the handsome, polished mask for all this generational control.
Virgil is sculpted. He's fair-haired, blue-eyed. He wears expensive, sleek, modern clothes, but his detachment is just chilling. He maintains this aloofness that hides a really deep, rigid commitment to his father's views.
He uses these cold conversational maneuvers to just dismiss everything Noemí is worried about.
He does. He says to her very pointedly, "You get your way in most things, don't you, Miss Taboada? Your father does as you wish. Men do as you wish." He sees her as just a simple socialite, someone easy to manipulate. It reinforces this idea that women are just ornamental, not powerful or intellectual.
And he believes in that same predetermined nature that his father does.
Oh, absolutely. He claims he's traveled the world and seen human nature, and he's concluded that people are bound to their vices and their predetermined nature. It confirms he has completely bought into the fit and unfit hierarchy. When Noemí challenges him, he just uses the power of patriarchal ownership. She's my wife. You are not going to change my mind. Underneath that handsome veneer, he is a sharp, intimidating gatekeeper of the Doyle ideology.
But there's one anomaly, right? One member of the family who offers a little bit of hope, or at least a crack in that ideological wall. Francis. He's Virgil's younger cousin, pale, thin, shy, and bookish.
Francis is the family's scared pigeon. He's the repressed soul of the household. He's openly subservient, but he also has this quiet envy for Virgil's ability to travel, confessing that the farthest I've ever been is El Triunfo.
Yeah.
His passion botany is such a profound contrast to the Doyle's obsession with silver and bloodlines.
He's the amateur mycologist, the one who's interested in fungi and the damp earth that the Doyles are trying so hard to control.
He collects mushrooms, makes spore prints, presses flowers. He identifies species from the edible Cantharellus siberius duraznios to the deadly poisonous destroying angel. And crucially, his interest in mycology and botany connects him to the indigenous culture the Doyles despise. He's interested in the Aztec ceremonial use of tionacatl, the flesh of the gods, for communion and visions. This scientific curiosity about the native flora and its spiritual history directly undermines the Doyles' rejection of the Mexican earth. The very earth Howard imported soil to cover up. Francis is the only one who sees the natural world, which we already know is deeply connected to the decay of the house.
The whole conflict over Catalina's health becomes this war of expertise, really. It pits the Doyle's self-serving story against Noemí's determination to find an objective truth. And the Doyle story is very simple. It's tuberculosis, and she needs the rest cure.
Right. When Noemí finally gets to see Catalina, she's listless, but she manages this brief flicker of her old humorous self before she just fades again. And Catalina insists it's tuberculosis and a high fever, which Virgil and Florence relentlessly reinforce. Their physician, Dr. Cummins, is an old family doctor, and his methods are strikingly outdated. Ice bags, alcohol rubs, and absolute isolation.
And Cummins is clearly more loyal to the Doyles than he is to medicine. He's protecting the family narrative.
Absolutely. He dismisses Catalina's erratic behavior, the ramblings, the letter, the claims of visions, as just an intensification of her existing anxiety and melancholic nature. He tells Noemí tuberculosis doesn't change a person, it merely intensifies the traits the patient already possesses.
Which is just a way of saying, She was always like this.
Exactly. And when Noemi presses him for a real medical opinion, he cuts her off and rushes out. He makes it clear he will not challenge the Doyles' control over the situation.
But Noemi, she's determined to earn her master's degree and save her cousin, so she resorts to using her social skills as a weapon. She uses her theatrical training, the fetching smile, the fake tears and helplessness she once used to get out of a speeding ticket, to manipulate the young town doctor, Julio Eusebio Camarillo, into paying a secret visit.
And Dr. Camarillo is immediately suspicious. He finds the TB diagnosis unlikely. He observes the critical behavioral shifts. Catalina is agitated, she's rambling, intensely terrified, and she makes this strange, desperate gesture of clutching her neck.
And she's talking about people in the walls.
Most alarming are her claims of people in the walls and feeling that the house is made of dead things.
So Camarillo's assessment is the first objective truth we get. Her behavior requires psychiatric attention, but he admits he can't actually intervene because of the Doyles' influence in the town.
Exactly. The Doyles might be financially ruined by Mexico City standards, but in El Triunfo, their small balance goes a long, long way. Camarillo is afraid of the repercussions. He notes the Doyles control the local priests through their donations. This confirms that the Doyle system of control extends far beyond the walls of High Place and into the economic life of the whole town.
So desperate, Noemi pursues a third avenue: traditional knowledge. She visits Marta Duval, the local curandera or healer, who confirms Catalina had been seeking help from her before for bad dreams.
And Marta provides the crucial cultural perspective. Completely bypassing Western medical diagnoses, she sees the whole situation as a spiritual and environmental affliction. She believes the house is cursed, afflicted by what she calls mal de air, bad air, or an evil influence, which sickens people because everything they touch rots.
Wow.
She sees the situation fatalistically. She notes that no remedy will help for long because the problem is that house.
But she provides a stronger sleeping remedy and also a spiritual shield.
Yes. She gives Noemi a beaded ojo de venado bracelet for protection. Marta's methods are steeped in local tradition and faith. She even reveals that her saint, St. Luke the Evangelist, has a curious vice. He accepts Gauloise's cigarettes as offerings.
So we have three competing diagnoses.
We do. We have TB from the Doyles, a psychiatric illness from Camarillo, and a spiritual or environmental curse from the curandera. And this thematic conflict mirrors the layers of the story itself. A physical mystery, a psychological breakdown, and a spiritual and cultural curse. It suggests the illness isn't just one thing, but all three combined, feeding off the decay. And Marta Duval, who charges generously for her detailed stories, is the key historian here. She is the one who unlocks the deep generational history of the Doyle rot. She connects the architectural decay of the house to decades of violence, racism, and economic dispossession that happened long before Catalina ever arrived.
She takes us all the way back to Howard's arrival. She confirms that he established his tyranny immediately, treating Mexican workers like animals and ending the partido, which was the traditional quota of silver the miners got as part of their pay. This was his first act of systemic economic control.
Then came the disaster of the 1888 epidemic, and this is where the racial segregation became deadly. It killed many of the house staff and miners. The English workers were given their own separate manicured cemetery, but the Mexican dead were often buried in a hurry in a hole in the ground with no markers, which led to rumors of mass graves. The Doyles literally valued English corpses over Mexican lives.
And this sets the stage for the first real political defiance. The strike, led by a man named Aurelio, who spoke out against the poor conditions of the loss of the partido.
And Aurelio was found dead shortly after, supposedly from fright, which very conveniently ended the strike. Marta strongly implies it was murder, noting his face was distorted like a man who's seen the devil.
And this political murder leads directly into the core family tragedy involving the next generation.
It does. The story of Ruth Doyle and Benito is the ultimate rebellion against the eugenics and class rigidity that Howard enforced.
Ruth, Howard's daughter, defied the Doyles' entire worldview by falling in love with Benito, who was Aurelio's nephew and worked in the greenhouse.
Wow.
Howard, obsessed with maintaining his superior-type bloodline, violently intervened. Benito vanished, which strongly implies he was either disappeared or murdered by the family to prevent the intermingling of the so-called superior and inferior types. And Ruth's final extreme act was one of just utter despair and revenge against the patriarchal system that had consumed her whole life.
Ruth was scheduled to marry her cousin, Michael, continuing that inbreeding pattern. Marta relays the sequence of the murders. Ruth allegedly used a sleeping draught to incapacitate her victims. Then she systematically shot Michael, her groom, her mother Alice, and her aunt and uncle Leland and Dorothy. Only Howard survived, injured, and Virgil was hidden away by Florence. Then Ruth killed herself. The entire act was rooted in the violent enforcement of racism and class control. Ruth's desperation was a rejection of a system that demanded she sacrifice love and life for the sake of the bloodline.
It's just such a dark family legacy, and it explains why the rot of High Place is so inescapable. Francis, the timid botanist, is the product of another tragic union. His father, Richard, vanished and died after speaking of ghosts. Even he understands the fatalism of the house.
Francis is completely resigned. He admits the house is inescapable, and he makes the shocking statement to Noemí that Ruth ought to have brought High Place to the ground. He sees the only real escape for the Doyles as the total annihilation of the system. His quiet despair is a constant reminder of the violence that's inherent in just staying there.
And as Noemí delves deeper into this history, the house starts to take a physical toll on her, reflecting that pervasive mal de air.
She finds this raw, red band of skin, a rash on her wrist. Dr. Camarillo suggests it looks like dermatitis from Malamugere, which is a plant that causes rashes, though it's not found locally. It just confirms her feeling of impending illness and the pervasive toxicity.
She starts connecting her intellectual training to what's happening.
Right. She starts speculating about arsenic in Victorian wallpaper, those Paris or Scheele greens, and the toxic effects of fungus. This shows her anthropology and chemistry background coming into play, trying to find a scientific explanation for what feels like a curse. And High Place doesn't just decay physically, it attacks psychologically. It targets Noemí's vitality directly through her dreams. Her nightmares are this absolute fusion of biological decay, repressed violence, and a kind of sexualized terror.
This is where the horror really becomes internalized. The dreams blend the house's physical architecture with absolute body horror.
She dreams the house walls are actively growing golden mushrooms dust, that the carpet is squishy under her feet, and the walls are pulsating like a strained muscle made of sickly organs and flesh. The fungus, which Francis is so interested in, manifests as this golden, toxic beauty that is consuming everything. This directly links the primary agent of decay, the fungus, to her distorted reality.
And the physical manifestation of this growth is the Golden Woman.
A truly terrifying phantom. She's in a dress woven of yellowed antique lace, and her face is a golden blur. The woman, who can't scream or speak, tries to physically consume Noemí. Her voice is described as the crunching of leaves, which just emphasizes this dry, biological consumption of life. And in the dream, the house walls quiver like a great internal heart.
But the climax of this psychological assault is the violent reenactment of Ruth's murders, which binds Noemí directly to the history of the house.
She sees Ruth in the hallway, an alabaster pillar, and her own breathing is synchronized with her. Ruth opens a door, revealing the man on the bed, Michael. But he's not just a victim. He is the literal manifestation of the house's internal illness. A bloated vision, a pustule lined with blue veins.
Horrifying.
And the suicide that follows leaves this dark splatter on the wall. Immediately after, the Golden Woman rushes toward Noemí, her mouth open, ready to devour her. She's not just witnessing the past, she is becoming the next victim in the cycle.
And maybe the most profoundly disturbing detail is how Virgil and Howard fuse into a single figure in her dreams, representing this generational disease of control.
This amalgamation is so critical because it confirms the underlying ideological truth. The leering, insect-like Howard appears only to transform into the handsome, sculpted Virgil. And this Virgil-Howard figure, smiling with white teeth in a diseased, rotting mouth, undresses her, presses her down, smiling as if she is a butterfly pinned against a velvet cloth.
It's showing that Virgil is just the aesthetic continuation of his father's diseased ideology. The handsome mask is hiding the rot inside.
Exactly. And what's horrifying is the sensation that comes with it. This paradoxical and sweet, sickening desire that flows through Noemí's body while she is helpless, pressed into a bed of earthwax. It's an act of biological and psychological subjugation.
The house is trying to corrupt her.
It's the house corrupting her innate vitality with its own blend of pure evil and enforced lust and control. The house is trying to subdue her with the same mechanism it used on Ruth and Catalina, submerging their will into its system of decay and desire.
And this psychological warfare immediately translates into the real world when Virgil finds her sleepwalking.
Right. Noemí is found in the hallway, near where Howard is moaning from his old wound. And Virgil is wearing a plush velvet robe patterned with golden vines. a highly suggestive detail that links him directly to the fungal rot and the golden woman from her dream. He calmly returns her to her room, asserting both physical and psychological control over her.
He uses that moment to intimidate her. He offers her his lamp, but ends with his chilling instruction. There's really a subtle threat. Better lock your door so you don't end up wandering around the house again, Noemí. He's reminding her that he controls the space, and he controls the narrative of her sanity.
But the Doyles fundamentally underestimate Noemí's innate stubbornness, the very quality her father was counting on. Despite being rattled and, physically violated by the dreams, she refuses to back down. When Virgil uses his predetermined nature philosophy to shut down her demands to take Catalina away, reminding her he is the husband and has ultimate control, Noemí retaliates.
That moment in the greenhouse is essential. She lets loose a curse in Spanish and smashes a ceramic pot in frustration. It's a small but vital act of aggression against the enforced stillness of High Place.
She determines that leaving now would be a betrayal of Catalina and a failure to herself. Her fight isn't about the master's degree anymore. It's a matter of her nature not to back down. Her final view of the greenhouse mosaic, the Ouroboros, the snake slowly devouring itself, signifies that by choosing to stay, she has now entered the cycle herself, and she has to find a way to break it. So we've analyzed how the source material meticulously builds High Place, not as just, a haunted mansion, but as an intricate, functional system. The system is designed solely to preserve a single, twisted, eugenically focused bloodline through absolute isolation and rigid control.
Right.
This cycle of infinite, self-consuming decay is perfectly symbolized by the Ouroboros. And Catalina's illness, whether it's a fever, anxiety, or a curse, is simply a manifestation of the house's total environmental and ideological rot. It feeds off repression, silence, and death.
And Noemí, the vivacious socialite who uses her Elizabeth Arden lipstick-like armor and fights for her anthropology goals, she is fighting against this entire ideology of biological and social stagnation. Her ultimate act can't be a simple rescue. She has to break the cycle of violence and decay that has bound the Doyles and the very earth beneath High Place for decades.
She's the necessary element of chaos in life.
Yeah, introduced into this sterile dying environment that is actively trying to turn her golden and fungal.
And that biological decay is the key to the final mystery. Remember the rules of High Place. The silence, the closed curtains, Howard's extreme sensitivity to noise, the reliance on candles. If the Doyles fear the mal d'air that sickens the townspeople and the house walls are literally infested with fungus and rot, then this raises an important question for you, the learner, to consider. What terrible biological secret does the family have? Something so sensitive to vibration or light that forces them to rely on candles and silence, lest the slightest disturbance wake the rot beneath the floorboards and unleash the full horror of the Golden Woman upon them all.
An excellent and deeply unsettling place to conclude this deep dive. Thank you for walking us through the rot and the resistance at High Place today.
A pleasure as always.